All right, everybody. I'm so excited for our guest today. It is Mr. Rudy Sarzo. And Rudy, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing today?
Jim, I am blessed beyond words, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah, we were talking just for a few moments before I hit record on the Zoom call here. That my inner 14-year-old is absolutely peeing his pants right now. That we're talking together, and I was talking about how hearing Quiet Riot. I literally was age 14, 1983 or somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it just grabbed me by the head, and I just could not stop listening. Um, and I remember, studying the album jackets and trying to figure out, what do these guys know? How are they doing this? Because I've never felt like this before with music. And
That's a really good observation of being 14 years old, trying to find out how somebody got there, because that is to me, it's like the first step towards modeling somebody else's career. I mean, you take from that and apply it to your own. So basically, you're like following what somebody else already did, who actually that person went through certain levels of struggles, stages of struggle to get there. But you can gain that their own experience. Like let's say we're doing this podcast. I think this is a perfect vehicle for that.
I think you're right. It's a way to reach people right in their ears, and maybe in part, some ways that we've solved problems, that you've solved problems, that so that others don't have to repeat the mistakes.
Yeah, I now that we're on the subject, I get this thought of how technology has advanced, so rapidly, but humanity for thousands of years has yet to advance. And if technology, which is man-made, can advance, why can't humanity, who is actually, from the creator, not get it together to join all the things that do advance at such rapid pace?
That is such a good observation. It seems like in some respects, like we make these big jumps as like a global community, but then there's like these like regressions, and then there's like a push forward, and then there's like 7 steps back, and it's a strange thing here on the planet for sure.
Yeah, I think again, it's my perception that is due to people holding on to the past. And I've been watching this. It's a neuroscientist. His name is Joe Dispenza.
Oh yeah,
and I've been really getting into Joe. I mean, first I got into Tony Robbins this years ago. Then I got into Napoleon Hill, which is the father of motivational literature, the books, Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
Which is not really a good title, because it's not about getting rich. It's not about the material, it's about the spiritual,
Right.
But then again, you can, of course, you can be wealthy spiritually, which is, to me, is the most important thing, and music is a major part of that for me. Not as much as a career as it is as much as a way to create resonance, positive resonance with the world, through music. And so one of the things that he talks about is how we tend to want to manifest a future based on our past.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you heard him say that over and over again, and I think that's what happens a lot. People cannot just let go of things that have to do prior to their generation existing,
Right.
Whether they're events or whether it's architecture, whether it is a community. Community changes according to the people that come into the community, geographical changes. I'm talking about people moving like I did from Cuba, coming to the United States, and and you have decisions to make. Am I going to adapt to the society that I move into, or try to have the society join me? I have this philosophy that when you join a band that's already established, the band is not joining you. You're joining the band.
Yes.
So you're trying
Adaptation.
to even adaptation. So you're trying to musically assimilate what has already been created, so your contribution to it can be seamless.
Yeah.
You know what I
Uh,
mean? So I learned that at an early in my life. You know, when I had to come from a different culture to another culture and say, I can't fight this. I cannot make this culture join me. You
Right.
know, I am going to contribute to the culture, still retain as much as I can of my own identity, but still, you know, be a part of this, because otherwise, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
What's my purpose for coming here? You know.
Yeah. It's interesting because to adapt, um, but also to progress while adapting, like it requires, some compassion with what is, and some understanding and willingness to adjust, but then to not regress, like you're saying, back into what we're used to doing, and do some sort of forward momentum requires that that we it's critical thinking, but really it's creativity, being willing
Mhm.
to take that chance and to do something that maybe hasn't been done yet, so that I, as the individual, and then maybe us as a group, can make a jump forward, and we don't just repeat ourselves over and over and over again,
Mhm.
generation after generation.
Mhm. Absolutely, and that's how you create a better future.
Yeah.
By the future being better than the past is was.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I was checking out your story. I didn't know that you were from Cuba until very
Mm.
recently, and I was just interested in, like, when you first were sparked by music, and like, what was
Mm.
it, if you can remember, that sparked you?
Uh, well, let's see. I'm 70 years old. I grew up during the 50s. I was born in 1950.
Yeah,
So technologically, we had radio, and then later on, in the middle of by the time I was 5 years old, we had television. What I'm trying to say is there were not a whole lot of distractions. We had basic entertainment, which was either live music, radio music, and then later on the television. So my parents, they like to go out, and they would take my brother and me in Cuba to events. Most of them would be like outdoor by the beach concerts with big Latin bands and Latin jazz band. And, to us, it was all Cuban music, it
yeah,
wasn't like, what is this? It was like, hey, this is music, And I have an uncle who is a opera singer and classical pianist, and we would go to his performances. So it was like diversity in our musical tastes, and so music has always been a part of my life. There was no it wasn't. I wouldn't call it a distraction. I call it a food group, something for my soul, something to make me vibrate and resonate. Like when you go to a performance, you're surrounded by people watching the show, and you feel their how moved they are by the music, and you sense that, and you resonate at the same frequency.
yeah,
And I'm speaking as a child, not as an adult who would go to a club and vibrate, or find the need to vibrate at the same frequency as everybody else. Let's say if they're drinking,
right,
which is like
different.
yeah. I'm sober now, but when I was a teenager, I did not know how to be comfortable in the presence of other people who were drinking and me sober. I just didn't know. I did not know what that meant or
Yeah,
how
that's
to
hard.
handle it, or if it was cool. You know? And when I wasn't drinking, when I was in clubs, it's because I grew up as a starving musician. You know, the term starving musician. I did not have the resources to
Yeah.
financial resource to go out and just spend a whole lot of money on, you know, drinking or anything that was popular at the time. So yeah, I would go out, but with a very low budget.
I get it.
You
I
know,
get it.
so actually, in retrospect, that was perfect and it was wonderful because I was able to absorb a lot of musical information from the local musicians who were performing at these clubs, and I saw it more as a music lesson rather than me being there, you know, for any other purpose.
Yeah, it was like you're going to school
Hmm.
without realizing that
Oh,
that
I'm always
makes
going to school. I'm always
yeah.
going to school. I mean, let's say our conversation, you know, I get to learn about you. You bring up certain perceptions, and I go, oh, that's interesting. Well, here's my perception based on your perception, and we share that. And this morning, I was on YouTube watching tutorials. You know, a little bit of Dr. Joe Dispenza and some musical tutorials, and that gave me an idea for something in a song. And you know, so it's a never ending process with me as far as getting knowledge.
Yeah, I love that. You know, when we turned the Zoom on, I saw you putting your instrument down. I'm like, man,
Mm-hmm.
he's practicing even now. That is inspiring. You know, yeah.
That's interesting because I don't consider it practicing. I consider it learning.
Mm,
Practicing to me is like well, I look at it. Musicians, we have two things that we do. We create and we recreate,
yeah.
which means is I already know this information. Now I'm going to apply it for muscle memory.
Yeah.
So then your body starts thinking like the brain. You know, I mean, I've been on stage and let's say the band has been on hiatus for a few weeks or months, and I practice the stuff at home. Then I hit the stage, and it's a whole different experience because you're with the band. There's people in the audience. There's, you know, you got your uniform on. You know, I call it the uniform. You know, and and some and you're like trying to find that place again, you know, that zone where you go when you're like when you've been on tour for like weeks
Yeah.
and you're in that zone when you're performing, you're one with the song, you're not even playing it anymore, you're leaving it, you're breathing it, you know.
Mm.
And but it's hard to get that when you're like, you know, during COVID we've only done 4 shows,
Oh,
all under CDC guidance. You know, I didn't meet anybody or see anybody. We're just like transported to the show, to the site, and then we're out of there, back on the airport, and go home.
mm.
So, but it was very hard to like all of a sudden, okay, you haven't played together in 3 months. Okay, let's do it. Let's go. Magic time. And yeah, we race to to the occasion. But during that, there's like moments of like, what, how do you play that next part in the song, and then your body just takes over because it knows it,
Yeah.
but your mind is trying to figure it out.
And then it plays all those games that it does on us sometimes.
Oh yeah, oh
You
yeah,
know,
oh yeah.
so I'm a lifelong drummer. My best friends have always been bassists,
Hmm.
and
Oh yeah, as it should be. Yeah,
yeah, as it should be. That's what I think too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So for you, what is it about the bass? Like, why did you choose the bass of all the
Ah,
different instruments?
I mean, I think I thank every day the person who told me, if you want to join the band, we got too many guitar players. You got to play the bass. That's how it
True.
happened back in my childhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my response was, "What's a bass?" I was just a kid. What's a bass? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
yeah.
So I was just doing a little bit of
Mhm.
reading on some of your history. I know a little bit of it just from my own being a
Mhm.
fan of Quiet Riot and the other work that
Mhm.
you've done. And I saw a little bit about the first time that you saw Quiet Riot. I think it was
Mhm.
1977. Um, I'm
Mhm.
wondering,
Yeah.
like, if you remember that show, if you could tell us like anything about that show.
Oh
If
yeah.
you weren't in the band yet.
No, no. I wasn't even imagining as I was watching Quiet Riot, me being in the band. I was just an observer, just like everybody else in this place called the Starwood in Hollywood, West Hollywood. Is it West Hollywood? Yeah, it is Hollywood because it's San Vicente. Okay, yeah. It's like in LA, once you cross the street, it becomes a whole different city.
Yeah. Yep.
So we have that in Hollywood and West Hollywood. And so yeah, the place called the Starwood and Quiet Riot. I just walk in. I made 3 trips to LA before I settled in '78. So in one of my 2 initial trips, I believe it was the second one in '77, that's when I wandered into the Starwood and I saw these guys and I go, wow, they really got it together. They're doing a arena performance in a club. They have vision. They know where they want to go. And so, being a club, you get off the stage and Kevin got off the stage and he's wandering around, and I bump into him and I go, hey, my name is Rudy and blah, blah, blah. And I saw you guys, and man, just whatever you're doing, keep doing that because it's great, and definitely, of course, the highlight of the whole show was Randy's playing, and all of that. But
Yeah. Randy Rhodes.
yeah, Randy Rose. Yeah. And that was it. I moved on with my life. And then about a year later, I was in New Jersey playing with my brother and my sister-in-law in a basically a lounge band. We were playing the lounge circuit. I went to LA, I mean to New Jersey to play with my brother because in LA, the reason why musicians moved to Los Angeles in the '70s and the '80s was to get it to showcase for labels, to get a record deal, not really to play top 40. You really couldn't make money playing top 40 there
Yeah.
because even if you did like Van Halen and some bands that played at Gazzari's, you still were not going to make enough money. See, it worked for Van Halen because they're from LA and they live with their parents. My parents were in Miami, so I
Yeah.
was basically on my own. So if you really want to survive as a musician, you have to get, a day job, which I did. And when I came back the third time in LA, I had a day job, and then at night I would be working with Quiet Riot, in the studio rehearsing or working on new songs or whatever. So yeah, so I changed my whole strategy. And even though I went there with money that I had saved while I was playing with my brother in New Jersey in lounges, so we could actually make some money.
Yeah.
And I was, when I was playing with him, and then bring that back to LA. So that's when I got the call from Kevin and say, hey, we're looking for a bass player, and coincidentally, I was going to be in LA the following week. So I said, yeah, I'm on my way there. I'm almost there. I'll come down and audition. And I got went there and auditioned and got the gig.
That's so cool. It's like it's that dream that musicians have. They go to LA, they get the audition, they start the experience, and then you guys have this record, Metal Health, that just blew up all over the world. And even though there are bands that played heavy music before you guys, Black Sabbath
Mm,
and Led Zeppelin and
mm,
different
mm,
folks, there was
mm,
something about you guys that sparked a big surge in heavy metal all through
mm,
the '80s. Like this was, for me, it was a formative time. Just
mm,
watching all of you guys do this. And what I wonder, I mean, you've played with a lot of folks, you listened to a lot of music.
mm.
What do you think it was about Quiet Riot that got people so excited?
Yeah. in order to answer that question, I gotta go a little bit back into the prior to
Please.
that. So when because we went, basically we did the yada 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 version of it, and like in Seinfeld when they go yada yada yada,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
well,
yeah.
because okay, so I joined Quiet Riot, and for about a year and a half, we banged our heads against the wall trying to get a record deal. The popular music at the time was, and I'm giving you my own yada yada version of it as I'm speeding up through it.
That's okay. Take your time.
Was new wave and punk, and then Randy joins Ozzy.
Mm.
Yada yada yada. Then the bass player, they call me up and to audition, and yada yada yada. I wind up in the band, and then of course, we'll know the tragic death of Randy passing.
Yes.
At the end of that tour, Diary of a Madman tour, I joined. I joined Quiet Riot, and there's a lot of yada yada in between that, but basically that's what happened. And then in '83, Mental Health, the album gets released. My thought about the success of the band, actually, it was the first debut by a metal genre record to reach number one on Billboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was the perfect storm, perfect conditions, because here we have a really poppy, heavy song. It was a rock song.
Yeah.
And there were certain oral elements like big drums and guitars and Kevin's voice, but it wasn't really a pop song. We used to get children at our show. Let's say we were playing with Black Sabbath, we tour with them, and mothers will bring toddlers and they will come backstage and they'll say, oh, their favorite song is Come On Feel the Noise. Come on, Billy, sing it. And the little, come on, feel the noise. And what if you break it down,
That's
Come On
so
Feel the
metal.
Noise. Yeah, well, it's really Three Blind Mice. Three blind mice.
I never thought. You just ruined it for me. Oh my
God. So you have that, ooh, okay, you got that going that people can figure out, why is it? Oh, it's because you've been singing that song since you were 2 years old.
Wow.
I mean, Three Blind Mice, you've been singing a nursery song.
My mind is blown. Yeah.
And then you add MTV.
Mm.
Was the greatest marketing tool that the music industry ever had. 24 hours of a jukebox right on your TV set, and it was basically, there was like a top 40 or even less. When we got on in '83 on MTV, they were playing Come and Feel the Noise every half hour on the hour, every half hour.
Wow.
I will play that song because there was no content, not enough content. So they were begging people, come on, give us your video.
Yeah.
So that, and the fact that it was a really great live band, we were able to deliver. And we always looked at it as, okay, we have the record. Now we're going to do a live version of what we recorded.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to like reproduce everything exactly the way it sounded, kind of like, we learned that from our favorite bands, like let's say The Who. When The Who performed Tommy live, it was just the, three guys with his, and then Roger Daltrey with his voice as an instrument. So you have four instruments doing what, he had layers on orchestration and John Entwistle playing the French horn,
Yeah.
You had all that stuff going on. No, live, they just did it the way they did it. And it worked. It was like, wow, there's so much raw emotion on that stage. So, we learned from that. And it's like, yeah. And it was one of those bands that whether we were opening or headlining, you got exactly the same raw energy. It didn't matter if you saw, because we did a lot of headlining clubs when we were on tour, we started with Scorpions, then ZZ Top, then Loverboy, then Iron Maiden, then Black Sabbath. And especially in the very first half of it, we would, on the headliners off nights, we would headline clubs in between the routing, where we were going. And so you got the same show in that club as you did if you watch us headline, opening up for Loverboy in an arena. Exactly the same show, the same energy, same attitude.
You're just attacking it. You're just going for it every night.
Yeah, you have to, because musicians, and you know this. I mean, you're a musician. You're a working musician. We don't get the same hall pass as athletes do. Let's say you're a baseball player and you go up to bat and you strike out the whole game.
Right.
You don't even make contact with the ball. Next day, the stadium's gonna be sold out anyways. Start over again. Now, a musician, when you go on tour and the fans see you once a year, once a tour, if you have a bad show, they ain't coming back.
That's true.
Because I've done that. I watch bad shows and I say, you know what? My money is too precious and my time too. I'm not gonna, you're done. So we have to recreate that masterpiece that you just did the night before and the night before every single night. You have to, because it's, and again, you have to respect the audience. The person that is in Tulsa was not in Memphis. So let's say in Memphis, you had what you consider this is the greatest show of my life. What should the fan in Tulsa suffer and say, well, I'm just going to take it easy tonight. Last night was great. No, you have to respect and just give them the same energy and the same focus and joy of playing to them too as a performer.
Yeah, you're right, because it's so easy. Having been on the road and played night after night, it can be easy to be fooled by the applause and the screaming and the autographs and all the sort of ego trappings that go with that whole land. It's just so unnatural, and you could have an off night, but people are still screaming and telling you that you changed their life, and I think it's easy to start believing that shit, and then for someone who's maybe not as thoughtful as you, to just think, I can just do whatever and they're going to love it no matter what, and then 4 years down the road or 3 years down the road they can't figure out why the career is gone.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I mean, I agree with you. That could be a personal thing that a philosophy or an attitude, let's say that. But especially today with social media, and I'm going to say this, even prior to social media, fans that I encounter with Ozzy, Quiet Riot, Whitesnake, even Dio, they were very vocal, and they will give you an immediate reaction to what you did that night.
Yeah.
Especially if they're fans, if they've seen you before, they start comparing you. So you always want to get that reaction, wow, you were better than ever. That's the least you can shoot for, because it means that you have taken, your best. It's like being an athlete. If you run, if you run a certain distance in 1 minute, well, you want to start cutting it down to 50 seconds. You best yourself. I mean, you're going to reach a certain point that's your breaking point. But nevertheless, you always think that if you got something else inside of you, take you to the next level. It's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to your brain to tell your body you can do it.
And what you're talking about is mindset. It's just you are choosing to live in that way. That refinement mindset. It doesn't matter how many years I've been doing this, that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it the whole way, the very
Mhm.
best I can, and push to
Mhm.
that next level, whatever that is.
Yeah, I am able to put myself in the audience when I play.
Mhm.
I look at the audience as a headliner, and I say this, there's certain things when you go on tour as a headliner, there's pros and cons, and I'm talking about a tour.
Yeah.
Currently, by choice, I enjoy having a balance in my life that when things are normal, we go out at least 3 weekends out of the month, and I fly. I fly on the weekends and I'm home. Then I'm home during the week with my family. Nice balance.
Nice.
Back in the day, we used to be gone for like, with Ozzy, I was gone. I had a 1 month break and I was gone for like a year and a half. With Quiet Riot, I just picked it up and kept going. The following year, we did the same thing. Whitesnake, the same thing. And it's like you're playing every day. Now your physical is just getting in shape because you got the adrenaline running every day, which is to me, it's the toughest thing to overcome for a show. I try not to build up to a show too much. I just leave it to that showtime. Here's showtime, part, because you're just ready to go, because if you build it up, your adrenaline starts working, let's say at sound check.
Right.
And it's like, by the time you hit the show, you're exhausted, emotionally exhausted, because you're like anticipating so much, so you want to like chill. And then once you hit the stage, boom, there you go, turn on that switch, and but so you do that 5 nights out of the week, man, you're in shape. You're like really in shape. And then you take certain things, that is certain preparation that I do when I'm in a touring situation like that I've done in the past, that really work. And let's say we're headlining, I go out during the opening band, and I stand on my side of the stage and I study the crowd. So there's a familiarity when I go on stage. It's not like I am not surprised by the faces that I see and the energy that's coming up those faces and the response and so on. And then what I do during the show, I look at the crowd and I see it as a dashboard on a car, the dashboard. Sometimes you're revving too high, the RPMs is revving, you're going in the red, you gotta shift it down one speed, get a little bit slower. You have to not only pace yourself physically during the show, but emotionally, because there's an arc to every great rock show that we've been as fans or played it, played at. There's a certain arc, emotional arc, and so I study that, and then I put myself in the audience looking at me, thinking, will I be entertained? Am I getting my money's worth? Will I come back and watch this band again if they come through town? Those were big questions that I had when I was a teenager, a professional fan, and just go to shows. I wasn't, playing professionally yet.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I learned as a fan. I saw enough performances growing up in Miami back in the 70s. I don't know if it still is, but back then, logistically, it was the departure or entry point for any tour, because it was like there's a huge port. You have New York and then all the other major ports, and then you got Miami because of all the cruise industry and the importing export. That is the gateway to that part of South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. So logistically, you could bring your equipment from Europe or the UK to Florida. There were plenty of places that you could rehearse at, big venues. Let's say if you're playing at the Sportatorium in Miami, the Hollywood Sportatorium, it was called. You could, if you're playing on Friday, you could start doing tour pre-production there on Monday, because the last band plays Saturday or Sunday. So you got the whole week open. You could rent it. And I saw so many bands all starting the tours and ending the tours there. And there's a difference between watching a band beginning the tour. It's a whole different energy. They're getting acclimated with the set list, the pacing of it, and then the end of the tour, traditionally, and I've been a part of this because Ozzy and Whitesnake, British bands have a tradition that on the last night of the tour, they just play pranks on each other. As a matter of fact, we did that Quiet Riot with Iron Maiden, and I got very fond memories of that last night we played at the Omni in Atlanta. It was mayhem during the whole show, and that's what the audience gets to see. And me growing up in Florida, I thought, does this happen every day? Every show? Is this all the stuff going on?
Right.
Torturing each other. Yeah. It's just, wow. Is this part of the show, every night? So, so I studied a lot of the events, the rock concerts that I went to as a teenager. Another thing that really, really helped me was that in college, I was a music minor and a mass communication major in college. And I learned radio, television, and motion picture producing, directing. I took the classes, I took the courses.
Yeah.
Because I said learn. Well, one thing is learning, one thing is being able to apply what you learn. That's when you're really experiencing it, And so I learned a lot. Well, for example, I have my own radio show. It's called Manchester, 6 Degrees of Sarzo on Manchester Rock Radio on the Dash Network. And I wanted to be a DJ back then, because I never thought I was going to make it in the music industry, because there was no local Miami rock music industry. There were a lot of recording studios, but no labels or, people to sign you,
Right.
And so I thought, well, I love the music and it's part of my life, so I might as well be involved some way. And DJ sounds like a pretty cool idea. And so, I studied that, and television, how to work the camera in front and behind the camera. So by the time that we started making the videos in the 80s, I was at home. I knew about lighting. When I first stepped on stage with Ozzy, there was professional concert lighting. And I went, oh, this is just like when I went to school. This is like all these, you got the front light, you have your fills, you got your side lights, you got your back lighting, you got your spotlight. Yeah, I get this. I know where to stand on stage and always be, as long as the light is on in my side of the stage, I was gonna find it, and I knew it. And I always had the lighting director. They would put like little tape crosses on the stage, so where to stand up and stand in that spot. And back then we had gels. We had the part cans, very soft, rich lights with gels, to change the colors. Now it's all basically LED lighting, which is very cold, very sharp, no penumbra, which is great because it creates the cones. And it picks up all the particles, and with the new lighting system, it doesn't have the same effect.
It's different. Yep.
It's very different. Yeah.
Of all of the, so you played, my God, you played with so many people. You mentioned a few of them: Whitesnake and Blue Oyster Cult and Quiet Riot and Ozzy, and now these days you're playing with the Guess Who. But of all the musicians that you've gotten to play with, I'm interested, who have you had the most fun with?
Oh, fun. I have fun with everybody. I mean, fun is look, it's not even about finances. I have fun with bands that I had more fun with them when we were struggling than when we became successful. So that certain dynamics start happening when success happens, So, fun. I got to tell you, I have fun with, touring with the Blizzard and Diary. It was the first time. It was more memorable.
Yeah.
Being on the road for the first time, and that's 40 years to basically to the date almost that I started playing. Yeah, with Ozzy. Yeah, 1981, and here I am, a new adventure, something I've never done before, going on the road, hanging with Randy, because Tommy Aldridge already had been around the block a few times with Black Oak and Pat Travers and Ozzy, of course, with Black Sabbath. And so it was just Randy and me, we'll go to shopping malls every day and in different cities and hang out, have fun. And, so, that was really unforgettable. Really, really was. And then a lot of times Sharon would join us, especially in the evening when the phone wasn't ringing.
Mm-hmm. And that's Ozzy's wife. Ozzy's wife.
Well, at the time she was just the manager and Ozzy's girlfriend. But mainly just the manager. That was her purpose of being on the road with us, taking care of the band. And those wonderful memories. Of course, we have the tragic, death of Randy, but I mean, there were so many incredible moments, not just fun. I mean, moments that you could say, I'm proud. I'm so grateful to be here, a lot of gratefulness every night.
That had to be an incredible introduction to the world that you're about to be in for the next bunch of decades. I can't even imagine what the atmosphere was like. On the road with somebody like Ozzy.
That is really a great observation. But I would focus, not limit it, but focus it on entering the world of Ozzy, especially back then, and the world of Sharon, because I went from sleeping on the floor at Kevin DuBrose's apartment to, like, in one day I wake up, I'm in Kevin DuBrose's apartment. I go to audition for the gig, get the gig, and that night I started living in Sharon's family's state mansion in the Hollywood Hills. So it was, talk about, wow, it was incredible. It was just insane. And so I'm in the middle of this two worlds colliding. Basically, you had the Ozzy band world, and then you have Sharon's family life.
Okay.
Her dad, who was also the main manager and owned the record label and publishing, Jet Records and all that. Legendary, iconic executive in the music industry, especially in the UK, and incredible history. And I'm in this right there from like nowhere to like in the center of it, So I knew what to do. I knew to like keep it quiet, not say anything, just like learn.
Observe.
It was observe and learn. Yeah, because sometimes observation can lead to judgment, and this is like no judgment. This is a reality that is so new to me that I don't know. I'm here, I don't know enough about it to pass judgment on it. So it was more like just like learning, open, completely open to it.
It sounds like what you described when you first came to America, a similar kind of thing where you mentioned adaptation.
That's a very interesting observation. Yeah, in some way it was, and in some way having handled that, there was, Yes, that is so interesting because when my family left Cuba, there was no turning back. When I left Miami to go to Los Angeles to make it in the music industry, there was no turning back. Even though I went to New Jersey, that was just like, wanna go here, work, get some money, and come right back and continue my pursuit of it. There was no turning back. And when you're in that mode, you got to make things happen, and you got to make things happen really quickly, and you got to learn and adapt and assimilate and still retain your own identity. Don't lose yourself, because that's not the reason why you're there. You're there to create a better you.
That's so inspiring to hear that, and to be able to just hear you say those words, because it's, I think if a young musician is out there listening to this, and to hear, what I'm hearing is that there's a balance. There's the balance between I'm adapting, I'm observing, but I'm also learning, and I'm taking chances all at the same time. Like I have to do all of the above. It's not one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and as far as young musicians, the most important attribute you could have is trust. Trust. And I say that as a young musician because that's when you start building your personal resume. And what really made the difference for me to be able to go from sleeping on a floor to being in a world-class touring recording band like Ozzy was that Randy knew me. Randy Rhoads knew me from playing with him in Quiet Riot, also teaching at his mom's school, Musonia, was right in the room right next to me. So when it came time to find a musician, a bass player in Los Angeles with certain attributes, such as dependability, being able to play, of course, a certain image, but is this person going to be a bad influence on Ozzy? Is this guy going to show up drunk on stage? You know what I mean? And right. And Randy said, listen, the guy you're looking for is Rudy.
He knew who you were.
Yeah, exactly. And once you gain that trust, you have to realize that the reason why Randy, that Sharon and Ozzy took his word is because he and Randy had gained their trust. So if I fail, I have failed Randy's trust in me, and Sharon's and Ozzy's trust in Randy. There's a ripple effect, and you have to, of course, I was going to be myself and carry myself as Randy promised, but to any young musician who's out there, is you not only do you have to gain that, you can never ever lose that trust, because it's the domino effect. You lose that trust somewhere along your career, everything that you gain all that time is lost. Really is, unless you're working with certain individuals that have a certain emotional attachment to you and they're going to give you breaks. I've been there as far as being in a band where I witnessed somebody getting a break by the leader of the band.
Yeah.
But it's very rare. You would have to have had so much of a involvement with the group. You will have to have so much, trying to find the right word, contribution to the music of that band to have to get those chances. Because if they feel like, now you're not worth it, you are replaceable, you're out.
Because you're living together, and you're sharing a sacred space on the stage, and you're sharing, like if you're working with a songwriter, you're really holding some of their emotional body in what you're doing. So, man, if they can't trust you, that's really disconcerting as a performer.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there's cases where it's done because the person needs professional help, that the band or members of the group are not, they don't have the education to provide that help, mental
Right.
issues.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in this industry, you know, there's many cases, especially if you're a big, high level earning artist or a band. You know, management will step in, bring in some rehabilitators, you know, some counseling, even on tour. It's been documented. Bands like Metallica, Aerosmith, they've done that. I don't know if they continue to do it, but they have done that in the past, because it's a huge chunk of the economy. Anytime that a major group like that breaks up, that's it's the trickle effect of a loss of revenue in the industry. Because every time a band goes on tour, and I'm talking about, you know, the size of Metallica, or, you know,
Right.
at that level, it's an economy, that it's a touring economy. You come into town, and the revenue that you bring into that city is massive. You know, from the babysitter that gets hired that evening so the couple can go, and as soon as they go in the parking lot, they're spending money on parking, and then you're on the way to the building. You're gonna buy, you know, a T-shirt or buy something at the concession stand. Then you get there and you buy some, you know, buy a drink, buy some food. You haven't even sat down yet.
Right.
You're see, you have
So
spent so
right.
much money, you know, and then, you know, the band brings money into the building. The promoters make money. The city taxes you on your revenues of merchandising, and the promoter gets taxed on that. So it's like it all goes back into the community, and it just creates this flow of money, you
It's
know,
huge.
back into the city. It's huge. And if you do that in places like New York, where you have at least one headliner every night playing in some venue, that's massive. And then you got Broadway, you know, you got all the shows and everything. So there's, boy, you know, once there's a disruptor, I mean, it's somebody who needs mental health rehabilitation. Once it starts happening, and and it's a member of a big earning, you know,
Yeah.
entity, things have to be conserved. Things have to be handled in order to keep that from imploding.
Yeah. That makes total sense. You
Mm.
know, and I'm wondering, you know, you've spent a ton of time on the road. Um, and I know from being out there, there's a lot of downtime. You know, there's those 2 hours on stage, there's a sound check, and then you have all that extra time.
Mm.
What if anything do you do? Like, what's your routine for staying, you know, keeping your mind together, keeping your body healthy? You know, what do you do for
Yeah.
your health out there?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's very different now than it was in you know, since I started like 40 years ago. Very different. Uh, I was younger then. I'm older now, and I'm wiser now. And in some ways, I'm in better physical condition today than I was 40 years ago.
That's good to
Uh,
hear.
yeah, no, I eat better. I take better. I've learned more about vitamins and minerals. I take CBD, non-THC, just good old CBD, you know. And that once I find certain things that really that my body resonates you know, positively with, I keep doing it. I just adopted, and they become part of my lifestyle. Recently, I had a blood test, and I was because I'm not completely vegan or vegetarian, but I'm eating less meat, and my body is one of those bodies that craves meat,
Mhm.
and the body craves it, but my mind really doesn't. You know, it's like I really, yeah, I don't care about it. My wife just mentioned a couple of days ago, do you miss eating meat? I go, what do you mean? Yeah, I haven't made you anything with meat for, you know, for a week. And I go, oh wow, I didn't even notice it. But I started taking folic acid.
Okay.
I did a little research online, you know, about, let's say I was, because the blood test came out with a borderline anemia. And I went, yeah, I feel it. That's why I have to eat meat once in a while just to get, my body feeling to normal. And then I came across folic acid as being, a good supplement. And I started taking folic acid about, months ago, well, almost 6 months ago. And it's like, what a difference it's made,
That's great to hear.
with me. Yeah. Yeah.
Something you and I have in common. I know we're getting close on time here, but I have to ask you about this. I have a silky terrier, and I noticed that you've got your little dog.
I got she's a Yorkie. Yeah.
Yorkie, right.
Yeah.
And I see that you are so passionate about helping animals. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and like if there's anything that our listeners can do to help that cause? Because I know that's near and dear to your heart.
All that I do is create awareness of shelter, dogs and cats that are available. I reshare information online. I am involved with certain organizations, that do charity work to finance, to help financially, these organizations, because it's very expensive,
Yes.
And but the people that do the real, the real work are people like Linda Blair. She's got her own foundation for pit bulls, and here in Southern California, these are people that really are devoted. She gave up her career as an actress to devote herself to saving, to have her own shelter.
I didn't know that.
And those are the people that those are the real heroes. I'm just hoping to create awareness.
That's beautiful. And so, on your socials, can you tell people how to find you on social media, like where they should go?
Oh, sure. Just about. And I know at some point this is not going to work because people are going to be copying my photo. But any site that says just Rudy Sarzo or official Rudy Sarzo, whatever, and it has my little dog with me, that's the one on the picture. Yeah.
Look for the little cute dog, and it's
adorable. Yeah. Or sometimes just a picture of Willow. That's all you need. Yeah.
And how about your radio show? You were talking about you're on the Monsters of Rock network. Is that
Monsters of Rock Radio. Okay. You can actually go to themonstersofrock.com and the radio station pops up, and it's the same brand that has the cruises, Monsters of Rock cruises.
Oh yeah.
And the festivals, Monsters of Rock Festival and stuff like that. And I have my radio show, 6 Degrees of Sarzo, and it's a radio show, meaning that it gets broadcast, and because there's music, and it's a ad-free and subscription-free station, there's not enough revenues to actually pay for the licensing of the music for downloading. So it's not like a podcast where you download it. Now, what's going on is that recently Monsters of Rock and Dash Network partnered with Spotify. So we found a way to get around that, because the show is 4 hours and is 2 segments of conversation, and the rest is music per hour. Right? So what they've done is they actually take my segments, bring it into Spotify, and create a playlist of music that is part of the library that's already included on Spotify. So now it's back to,
I love it.
1 hour of talk, half hour of talk and half hour of music, without having to pay all the incredible licensing sync fees for broadcast of the music.
Oh, that's great. So it's 6 Degrees of Sarzo.
Yeah.
Monsters of Rock. And I'm gonna link all these links in the podcast show notes, so people will be able to find that at donovanhealth.com. Last question, Rudy, and I'm just so grateful that we get to do this.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back and talk to 20-year-old Rudy,
mm-hmm.
what advice would you give him?
Oh no, actually, I would say thank you.
There you go.
Really, because I mean, 20-year-old Rudy uh, invented this for me. He's just say you can do this. Yeah, I said thanks.
What a great answer. Rudy, hang on the line for a second while we close this down, and I just want to express my gratitude to you. Thank you for
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
all of the great shows that you've played. It must be thousands, and I think about all the happy people that have left the arena, they've left the shed, and just with a big smile on their face because you brought it. And man, that's what a good model for all of us.
I'm just blessed to have been part of some of the greatest bands that I ever saw.
Yeah,
because I was there.
Yeah, you're right in it, and you're still doing it, man. And you look great, and I'm just
thank you. God
so
bless
happy
you.
about this.
God bless
and
you,
so, yes, and you too. Hang on the line for one quick second, and everybody out there, if you go to donovanhealth.com, I'm going to connect all of these links that we've just been talking about for Rudy Sarzo. Make sure you go follow him. Go check out his radio show and his podcast. He's got so much good stuff. And I appreciate you listening, and we will see you next time. Much love.